Shalom Aleichem Rabosai, I hope all is well. Rav Tzvi here. Mishanechnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha, good Chodesh. Hopefully the month has started off in a Simcha-dik one, even more than it usually is. Just wanted to share a quick vort about the message and the underlying theme of Purim. If you look at the beginning of the Megillah, we spent an exorbitant amount of time on a very strange episode. Obviously the whole party and the thing that happens with Vashti that everybody's familiar with. And then there's like, let's say an 8 or 10 pasuk range where we all kind of zone out when Achashverosh is trying to figure out what to do with Vashti. And Memuchan, who is, the Gemara says is really Haman, comes up with a whole plan, a whole idea. He says, I have an idea. Let's make all of the people, all of the men in all the houses, they should be sorer b'veiso. They should be the number one in the household. They should rule their own house. And whatever they say goes. Whatever language they speak, that's the language that should be spoken in the household. And Achashverosh loves this idea. He sends out letters and igeros to all the people proclaiming that the man should be the ruler of the household. It's very strange. We spent a lot of time discussing it. And even stranger is that very often, sometimes in different, I don't know what the minhag is by you, but very often the Baal Koreh will have the minhag to lane that last line in an elevated trup. Lios, Kolish, Soreh B'Veiso, Umedaber Kilshon Amo. That language and that tune is usually reserved for big turning points of the Megillah. It's very strange that this is one of the turning points of the Megillah. It's some ridiculous decree that Achashverosh came up with to make the men rule their households. So it's a very beautiful idea, and this really underscores the real message behind Purim. The Gemara says in Daf Yud Beis, Amud Beis in Megillah, it says, Ilmali igros rishonos, if it had not been for those first letters, that first decree that Achashverosh had sent out, so lo nishtayr me sonehem shel Yisrael sarir dipolit. There would not have been any remainder. Nobody would have been left of the Jews when Haman had his decree to kill everybody. It says, explain the Mefarshim that basically the Goyim would not have waited a year. Aaron, if you look at the dates in the Megillah, it's very funny. We don't necessarily look at this or realize it at all. But Haman made his lottery in Nisan, and the lottery fell out of Adar for the next year. That basically there was a whole year to wait between Haman's between his lottery and a decree to actually go and kill the Jews. Says Chazal that the Goyim would not have waited a year had it not been for the initial igaros, for the initial decree. What does that mean? Basically like this, that the initial decree that Achashverosh sent out at Memuchan's advice was that every man should rule his household. And all the people in Shushan and all the people in Paras Umadai got this decree, and they said, okay, if you know anything about the history of that time, men were already rulers of their own household. They already spoke the language of the husband. Even a lowly weaver, says the Gemara, spoke the language of in his household. Right? That was a ridiculous decree. Everybody got this decree and they were like, okay, king's a little nuts, but so be it. So they didn't take it seriously. It became a joke. The Achashverosh's decrees became a joke. So when he sent out another one, and that said, okay, let's see what the king says. Kill all the Jews. Okay, so it says, explains the Gemara that all the Goyim were down. All right, they're like, let's kill all the Jews. But they remembered the first letter that Achashverosh sent out many years beforehand, and we'll get to that in a minute, that Achashverosh said every man should rule his own household. That was a joke. So maybe this was also a bit of a joke as well. So the Goyim decided, instead of running out and killing all the Jews, and they get all excited, they decided to wait and see. They decided to wait the 11 months. Okay, we'll see what really comes in Adar. Next Adar, we'll see if the king really still wants us to kill all the Jews. And they waited to kill all the Jews, and that allowed the whole Purim story to take place, to evolve. The Musar and the message from this, and that really permeates the entire Megillah, is when you think about it, the Megillah really spans almost 10 years. Right? Achashverosh's party was in the 3rd year of his reign. Esther became queen in the 7th. Haman's lottery, his pur, was in the 12th. Esther had already been queen for 5 years when Haman rose to power. So we read the Megillah and we see that it's almost as if they're back to back to back. But really this is a bunch of random events that came together. And says the Gemara, yet if this random decree of Achashverosh had not been passed out 9 years earlier, the Jews would have been wiped out. But you see that the Hashgacha of Hashem, that really something that seemed totally unrelated to anything, had a tremendous impact on the salvation of the Jews. And that is the Musar from the Megillah and really from Purim itself, is that we can see, if we can take a step back and see God's Hashgacha. And very often we get caught up in our day-to-day lives, we don't really see the big picture. Kodesh Baruch Hu sees the big picture. But things that happen to us, my Rebbe Rav Sachs always used to say that things that we don't necessarily understand always happen to us for a reason. Because this may be setting things in motion to the future, taking care of us. Kodesh Baruch Hu's always got our back. And we may not necessarily realize that. The Megillah has to be read. Chazal say, you can't skip anything, you can't even skip one word, you need to read the entire thing, because the point of reading the Megillah is to see God's hand in the entire story throughout seemingly minuscule events. But Kodesh Baruch Hu was already setting the plan in motion. Kodesh Baruch Hu is always guiding our lives, and we don't necessarily see that. If we can take Purim and use that as a catalyst, as a microcosm, to help us realize that really Kodesh Baruch Hu is controlling every single thing, and He's got our best interests in mind. So that really sets us up for a tremendous life of fulfillment. That we realize that Kodesh Baruch Hu is guiding our lives in every single thing, even something that seems totally random, totally out of place, has nothing to do with anything. But really, years later, perhaps that's a very important detail. Just in terms of my own life, I know I've seen certainly things that have a lot of hashgacha. I remember when I was applying to this fine institution, when I was Shana Aleph Shana Bet, so I originally wanted to go to a different yeshiva that did not accept me. And, Baruch Hashem, they did not accept me, even though at the time I was very upset. But certainly, looking back on it, it was tremendous hashgacha that I was zocheh to go to this wonderful yeshiva, and obviously come back years later as a Rebbe and influenced many other Talmidim. So I have a tremendous Hakar Zatov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that. But again, just any example I'm sure you can all think of in your own lives of things that happened that you thought originally wasn't so good, but perhaps turned out to be real Hashgachas Hashem. If we can all see HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the mist of Olam Hazeh, so Mitzvah Hashem will be zocha to use this Purim to allow us to get even closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have a wonderful month, a wonderful Purim, and Mitzvah Hashem, please be in touch. Love you guys.